Undivided back, divided back, white border, linen, chrome. I'm confused. Hey guys, Ken here. Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I want to talk about the different eras or time periods that postcards were actually created in, because if you're going to sell postcards on eBay, you need to know the different time periods, or what they call eras, spelled E-R-A, and what time period they're from, because in the item specifics, it's going to ask you that. It's going to ask you what era is this particular postcard from. And I just want to do a video to kind of show you the differences. I've got some examples of some cards here. Some of them I don't have because, they're very old. The first era we're going to talk about is what they call the Pioneer era, okay? And that's a very, very old era. It's from 1893 to 1898. Now, I've never been blessed to run across one of these cards yet. I hope I do, because they're very, very valuable. The next era we have is what's called the private mailing card era. Now, I had some of these cards. They're from 1898 to 1901, turn of the century. I had several of them, and they all sold because, once again, they're very old and they're very, very valuable. And collectors just like to scoop them up because of the, they're over 100 years old, So that would make them actually antiques. But now we get into what's called the undivided back area. And this is where I do have cards. Okay, so don't get too disappointed. But this is an example of an undivided back card, okay? And the reason why you can tell it's an undivided back is because there's no line going down the center of the card. It's all open-faced. They usually write there's no real message on the back of the card. I guess there could be sometimes, but they've just put the person's address, name and address, on the whole back of the card. And that's how you can usually tell an undivided back. And the undivided back eras are from 1901 to 1907. So right around the turn of the century, still a very valuable card. I've sold many of these. And they sell for good money on eBay because of the fact they are right on the border of being antiques, because they're right on the border of being 100 years old. Anything over 20 years old is considered a vintage. Anything over 100 years is considered an antique. So you want to be on the lookout for things like this, especially ones that are posted. This one here is posted 1906. Okay, so, and it's clearly postmarked, and these are what they call an undivided back era. That's how you tell what those are. Now, the next era that we have is what they call the divided back era. And why do they call a divided back era card? Because they have a divided line down the back of the card that separates the card in the back. And on the left, as I'm looking at it, on the left side, you would put your message, and on the right side, you would put the recipient's address. And then you would put the proper postage and everything. And these cards usually, they have a very old look to them. They're very smooth. They're kind of they're not quite a glossy, but they're kind of a semi-gloss material. And sometimes they have red letters up at the top. Okay, I'm not sure if that's on the undivided backs, but I know on the divided backs they have these red letters. Those are very valuable too. I have some of those, but I forgot to bring one out, sorry. But just to let you know, that would be a divided back. And again, the year is 1901 to 1907. Okay, next one. This is what they call a white border. And they're very definitive by a white border around the card. It's not like let me see if I can show you one of these. This is the next era coming up. It's not like what they call a full bleed, where there's no border, okay? This has a definitive white border around the edge, and it's usually a very artistic card. And you can tell a white border by the feel of it, because it has a very smooth surface, and it has a very, like a semi-gloss, almost a matte finish to it. not glossy, but semi-gloss or matte finish, and it definitely has a white border. Now, sometimes you'll find a white border that's quite older, and the white border may have yellowed a little bit. So it may not be pure white, but because of the texture of the card and the smoothness of it, you'll be able to define that it is a white border. They're usually also a divided back, but the dominant part of the card is the white border part, and that's how you can tell a white border card. Now the next one up, these are kind of my favorites. These are what they call the linen era. And the linen era is 1930 to 1945. The white border was from 1915 to 1930. I forgot to mention that. But the linen era is from 1930 to 1945. And that can be a full bleeded card, what they call a full bleed. It goes all the way to the edge. Or it can be a card with a border. Now that's where some people get it confused. Okay, because if you have a card that looks like a white border, but if you notice here, this has a texture to it. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if it's even in focus, but it has a very, like a linen, not cloth-like, but it has a rougher texture to it, to where the white border card has a very smooth texture. This is smooth, but it still has that definite feel to it. It's got some texture to it. And that's how you can tell a linen card. And sometimes they have borders, but sometimes, a lot of times, they're full bleed like this. And they are part of the, also part of the divided back, because they have a divided line in the back. But basically, a lot of artistic cards, a lot of like scenic cards and things like that have a tendency to be these types of cards. And again, you can tell by the texture, the feel of it. If it doesn't feel perfectly smooth, if it feels like it's got some grit to it, not, well, maybe not grit, but maybe just some texture to it. You know, if you look at it, there should be like lines of textured material going through the cloth. You can look at that. The way you can tell a linen card is if you can get one of these. I have a Carson 10 power loop. This is a magnifying loop that I use for photography. You can pick them up in any, probably on Amazon or whatever. But you would look at this card up close, and you can actually see the texture in the card because it's not smooth. It's got kind of a texture to it, and I can see the lines running right through it. So that's how you would tell a linen card, okay? And the last one I want to show you here, this is what they call, it's got several names. It's called a chrome. It's also called a photochrome. It's also called, in some areas of the country, it's also called a modern card. And the reason for that is because it's from 1939 on. And these you can always tell because they have a very high gloss feel to them and look to them. They're almost like a high gloss, smooth finish to these. And like I said, they're usually from 1939 on. Okay, now this one here is dated 1970, so that would qualify within that era. So to recap real quick, Pioneer era from 1893 to 1898, you've got the private mailing card, and it would say, if you had a private mailing card, you would know, because it says, it's stamped right on it, private mailing card. Okay, this was before I think this is before the term postcard came out. And that's from 1898 to 1901. And then you've got the undivided back, again, no divisional line down the center. They just write the whole address on there. And those are from 1901 to 1907. Then you got the divided back era. And these are still an older card, but because they have a dividing line of some sort down the center, that signifies a divided back card, and that's from 1907 to 1915. Then you got the white border, and the white border usually has a white or yellowing border around it, and it's a very smooth finish, very semi-gloss matte finish, and it always will have a white border around it. And then you've got the linen card, and this has got a texture to it. Grab yourself a loop. And you want to get one of these because in another video coming up very soon, I'm going to be talking about, there's a couple of different types of cards. There's cards called printed cards, what they call lithographs, and then there's what they call real photo postcards. And you really need one of these loupes to be able to tell the difference. You can't really see the difference with the human eye. So if you can, pick up one of these, okay? They're very handy. And this is a linen card, and it's got a very smooth texture. You can usually, under a loupe, you can usually see the linen lines going through the card, okay? And then, of course, and that was from, linen was from 1930 to 1945. And then you've got what they'll call the chrome or photochrome or modern cards. And these are defined usually by, they have a very high glossy look. I'm doing that deliberately so the light reflects off of it and you can see. And these are from 1939 on. And that's how those are defined. They're usually divided back. And also, but the dominant part of the card is a chrome card. People call them chromes for short. And it's funny about chromes. I want to say something about that before we end this video. When I first got into postcards, I didn't want anything to do with chromes because I thought they were too new. I'm like, no, 1939. I want the real old stuff, the turn of the century stuff. But then as I began to realize that anything over 20 years is considered vintage. Well, we're in the year 2021. So you back that up 20 years and that fits well into the vintage time period, So these cards are valuable. I sell a lot of chromes. Some people shy away from them, but I love them, okay? And, it depends on the subject matter. Like this chrome here is very interesting. You got the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge, and you got this beautiful angle, beautiful light, city showing the bay. Very interesting card. Okay, this would sell. I'm expecting this to sell quickly. And like I said, it all depends on the type of card. What's the content on the card itself is really what's going to sell these. So I hope that was a help to you. I just wanted to explain the different areas. Like I said, if you're going to sell postcards on eBay, you really need to understand these areas and have something written down. So when you go to the item specifics, it's going to ask you what type of era it came from, and you're going to have to put that in to complete those item specifics on eBay. So I hope that's helped. If you got anything out of this video at all, make sure you smash that like button. It really helps the channel. I appreciate it. And I guess that's it for now. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care, and bye for now.